Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, I have another great couple of articles to read to you today, folks. Both of them exhibit incredible, bizarre phenomena that the witnesses experienced, and I can't wait to get into them. The first article we'll be reading is Tall, Thin, Black-Robed, Black-Eyed Female Humanoid Appears During Bedroom Encounter. Let's get into the account now and hear how this woman encountered these small gray aliens, plus this tall, black-eyed female one. Let's read the little blurb from basically one of the more terrifying moments in this story before we get to the real meat of it. She found herself standing by the foot of her bed with the short, stocky beings struggling with her in an attempt to give her an injection. A long needle was inserted into her shoulder and a white substance was removed. Manhattan, New York City, November 1989. The witness was lying in bed, unable to sleep, when a very bright white light entered the room. Then 3 or 4 humanoids entered her bedroom, apparently through the walls, and stood by her bed. These beings were described as 5 feet tall, wide and heavy-set, with large heads, large pupilless eyes, no ears or hair, with dark bluish skin. Their hands were very large, with thick fingers and nails. They wore white coats down to their ankles. She was asked to come with them and followed them down to the street. There she saw a group of about 30 women walking towards the river. All appeared to be in a trance. She felt drawn to the river, and once there she observed 3 brightly lit, hovering disc-shaped objects. Now, before we continue with our story, folks, the pupilless-eyed, blue-skinned aliens sound very much like a type of alien described by Whitley Strieber in his book Communion. Could they possibly be the same species? There's a chance, though I'm not sure if Whitley Strieber described these bluish-skinned beings wearing white lab coats the way this lady described her encounter. Either way, let's read the rest of her story now and read how she encountered this tall, female, black-eyed being, and read the interactions between the witness and this being. A tall, thin, female humanoid with huge black eyes and wearing a flowing black robe appeared to be in charge. She was called by this being and asked to perform a test-type task. Next, she found herself standing by the foot of her bed with the short, stocky beings struggling with her in an attempt to give her an injection. A long needle was inserted into her shoulder and a white substance was removed. A Long Island UFO update, winter 1991. It would seem that this woman remembers parts of her abduction. She remembers this woman with black eyes asking her to perform a task, but doesn't remember exactly what happened during, this supposed task. But then remembers that the stocky beings were basically struggling with her and they were trying to remove something from her shoulder. So it sounds to me, folks, that this woman at that point was completely under the enthrall of these alien beings. And for the most part, they wiped her mind of exactly what happened. But the part where basically she's struggling with these stocky beings, this is where the mind wipe basically fell apart. And she basically remembers this part of the incident very vividly because of how terrifying it was. So, what did this tall, black-eyed woman ask of this particular woman here, folks? What was the task asked of her? And then, folks, we have to consider that this tall, robed woman with the black eyes, maybe she was one of the women in black, because she sounds exactly like the way most people describe them. And then there's also the bluish aliens. Were they really the same aliens Whitley described in his book and in the movie? Remember, it could be that these aliens looked very much like the ones appearing in the movie, and they might have nothing to do with the actual novel. Either way, let's move over to this next article. Travel paramedic says Pennsylvania is the strangest state. Yes, folks, this guy who's basically been all over the states, covering both the west and east parts of the United States, says that Pennsylvania is one strange one. So let's get into his account now. I've been all over the state, typically driving 100 to 300 miles a day through winding mountain roads. Pennsylvania can be a strange place at night, especially with a lack of street lighting on many roads. Another brief blurb from the article we'll be reading, folks, and it gives you an idea that this guy's been everywhere, but he thinks Pennsylvania might have the strangest, atmosphere and basically weirdness in it. At least this guy's opinion of it, folks. Either way, let's get into his story now. Since the beginning of the pandemic to now, I've been working as a travel paramedic across the country. I've worked everywhere from New York City to LA and Native American reservations in South Dakota. During my travels, I've seen some eerie things and have had strange encounters. A lot of the high strangeness occurred in Pennsylvania. Of all places, Pennsylvania was one of my first travel jobs during the pandemic. Typically, I was in a new city and a new hotel every week. I've been all over the state, typically driving 100 to 300 miles a day through winding mountain roads. Pennsylvania can be a strange place at night, especially with a lack of street laying on many roads. On one occasion, while driving down a back road through central Pennsylvania, a giant dog hopped the guardrail and ran in front of my truck. It looked like a husky or coyote, but bigger than any dog or coyote should be, on all fours. Its head was on the hood of my truck, a 2020 Dodge 2500. The hood of the truck is 6 feet from the ground. It made prolonged eye contact with me with sharp, piercing yellow eyes as it crossed the road and continued into the woods. So a very horrifying account there, folks. Was it a dog man, or was it actually, as I said before, one of these larger than normal dogs or wolves that people have seen as well? Maybe it even was a hellhound encounter, folks. But then again, in those accounts, the beast usually has red glowing eyes, not yellow eyes like a typical wolf like this. So, very intriguing nonetheless, but still, what was this creature that this man encountered? Either way, there's still more things that this man basically experienced in Pennsylvania. Flash forward a few months, I'm in the Philadelphia area. The area my hotel occupied is newly developed, so the parking lot of the hotel is well lit, but the surrounding area is wooded and dark. I'm often awake until early morning hours and keep my blinds open. The other night, I was looking out the window and saw an odd white shape in the parking lot. It was absolutely featureless from what I could tell, kind of like a blob with thick, short legs. I was so shocked I did a double take and it was gone. A few nights later, I was laying in bed watching TV, window open, blinds up. I heard this odd noise. The only way I can describe it is it sounded like a baby's cry, but muffled and raspy. And it sounded like it was being carried away as if a strong gust of wind was blowing it out of earshot. I heard it 3 times and saw nothing out of my window, but I had never heard a sound like that. I thought maybe a fox or some other kind of animal, but it was way too close to human and just not human enough to be written off as such. Could this possibly be a crawler? Maybe it was, folks. Whatever this thing was, I've heard that people have described basically hearing sounds like a baby's cry with various paranormal encounters, and it almost feels like it could possibly be a lure to get people out in the woods where these things could get them. And this has been heard, I think, around with, pell crawlers before. Either way, there's a note, folks. It basically says he's not telling me anything new about the state of Pennsylvania, because weird things do happen there, as well with other states in North America, folks. So, yeah. What we've read here, folks, is nothing new, but certainly is still intriguing. Yeah. These sightings take place all over North America, folks, not just in Pennsylvania. But I have to say, folks, what is truly enlightening about these accounts is that there are similarities. Remember, the woman who was abducted by these short, stocky beings and this black-eyed woman, remember, these bluish beings had stocky legs, much like the way this guy described this white being he said he saw. So, is there any kind of connection? Perhaps he got it wrong. Maybe this being he saw was one of these stocky aliens, and the reason why it looked white was perhaps maybe a light was shining down on it from maybe one of the street lights. And while there aren't that many street lights in Pennsylvania, perhaps this guy had enough lighting to basically mistake this being for basically being literally ghost-like instead of basically being the short, stocky alien being that actually is. Or maybe this guy actually did see some sort of ghostly apparition that just happened to basically look like a big round blobby thing with short stocky legs as well. But I think there could be a connection here, folks. I don't know what that connection could be. There's certainly 2 different encounters, but the fact that this being saw something even remotely similar to what this woman saw is very, very bewildering, because this means that indeed these accounts are connected, at least in some odd way. But is that true or not? Did he actually see an alien being? And what about this huge black canine he saw? Was it a dogman? Or was it some sort of phantom canine or hellhound? We just don't know, folks. And what about this ghostly baby-like voice he heard that was carried off on the wind? Was it a passing spirit, perhaps? Or was it indeed maybe a lure from a pell crawler trying to get someone to come out into the woods so this thing could possibly feast? We still have no idea if that's the truth or not, folks. Because, folks, if this was a pell crawler encounter and someone did go out there, for all we know, this pell crawler would have just jumped out and said boo. That's how much we actually know about these things, folks. But nonetheless, we're still going to try. Anyway, we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics, they're bad for you. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to me. And remember, folks, I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. I'll be back tomorrow with another great video, so make sure to come back again then. And when you do, we'll delve more into the paranormal subject and have a lot more fun. So make sure to come back again tomorrow. Until then, folks, as usual, bye.